Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission of Napa County. Our meeting today is Monday, February 5th, and I will ask for roll call, please.
Yes. Good morning or afternoon. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Leary.
Here.
Commissioner Moeller.
Here.
Commissioner Painter.
Here.
Commissioner Ramos.
Here.
Chair Cottrell.
Here.
Commissioner Abunos. Absent. Commissioner Gallagher.
Here. Here.
And Commissioner Khan is absent.
All right, thank you. And I will ask Barry Christian to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so our next item is the approval of agenda from the last meeting. Any questions or a motion we can entertain?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, a motion by Mueller. Is there a
Second.
second by Painter? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Is there any public comment that we have today? No public comment. Okay, we'll move on to consent items. That we have one action item and then receive reports for information only. Are there questions or a motion for the consent item?
Approval of consent.
All right, motion by Mueller. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Leary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to item 6, the action items for today. Not requiring a public-
Your mic is off.
Thank you. They don't require a public hearing, but we can dive on into them. Good morning, Director Friedman.
Well,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon, Chair Cottrell and members of the commission. The two action items on today's agenda will be presented by your Assistant Executive Officer, Dawn Longoria. And so I'll hand over the floor to Dawn.
Yikers. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, this is the annexation of the Green Island area to American Canyon. And, oh, I'm sorry. That's why it didn't look right. Anyway, this is, I would call it kind of the second phase of a project that's already been approved by the commission. The Sphere of Influence Amendment was approved by the commission to include this property. What's before you now is the annexation of the property to the American Canyon Fire Protection District. Now, the reason that this did not occur at the same time as the other action was because the tax sharing agreement with the county needed to be approved and put into place. And now that has been approved. And so therefore we are moving forward with this project. And basically, I think the important thing here to understand is that the fire district has been providing service to this area since 1992. So in essence, this is a cleanup of a boundary. The environmental review of it is that it is categorically exempt, and there again, it's categorically exempt because it's of a change of organization for a local government agency. So there's no plans to build homes there or something like that. So that's the important thing, is that it is purely to recognize the fire district's continued service to the area. So we are recommending approval of this proposal and adoption of the CEQA findings. And that includes the standard terms and conditions that we often see in these kind of proposals. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission would have.
Chair, I have a...
Go ahead, Director Mueller.
we've got a fairly new commission up here. When this previously came to us before the tax sharing agreement, I just thought it might be helpful to give a little more background to everybody what that previous agreement did and why it, because we had a lot of background. It was all in concept, but we didn't have the tax sharing agreement. So if you could just walk through that in a little
Yes.
more detail. Because I
Yes.
remember some of the other questions we had asked before. We got a lot of, I think we're clarifying, there's another, the Greenwood Road. Is that the
Yes.
the other fire department and why this one? And I just thought it was very informative, so it might not hurt to go through
Sir,
that again if you don't mind, because I know
That's,
you know
I think
it
that's
all.
a yes, and thank you.
Okay.
I didn't remember that. That's an excellent point. In that we have new commissioners that weren't familiar with this one when it came through. So originally, the proposal came through as Green Island Road, and it was a sphere of influence amendment to the city and the fire district, and then it was also proposing the applicants applied for annexation to the city as well. And then because of their growth limit and so forth there, it did go to a vote of the residents of American Canyon. It did not succeed in that vote. And LAFCO took the attitude at that time that although there were concerns about the ability to actually farm on that for agriculture on that property because of the saline water that was available for them, and actually it came to realize that it was not as much the rising sea level, which is what happens in certain areas, is that salt water is coming up from underneath, but this was actually from irrigation, and the irrigation was at certain times of the season. The pickle factory that is there, which you can imagine how much salt that might involve, they flush their systems, so then that all goes into the water system and the recycled water and so forth. So that was one of the problems with that one. So the commission did deny the annexation to the city. The property owners have advised us that I believe most of the vineyards that were on that property at the time have been pulled. However, some of the letters and complaints or objections to the project were actually from Farm Bureau, and their take on it was that although vineyards might not be able to grow on that site, that there were other agricultural uses that could occur. So that was basically kind of the decision that occurred on that one. Now that was all dealing with it going into the city of American Canyon. What the commission did approve at that time was for the property to go into the sphere of influence of the fire district. And so the proposal before you now is that follow-up. The fire district had made application then to go ahead and annex this property. So this does not pave the way to change it from agriculture. It's just to recognize that the fire department has been providing service to that area. And so that's basically.
Yep. And just one more thing, there's another fire department nearby, but this one is closer.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And you have the automatic aid agreements and mutual aid agreements between the fire districts. They're very good about sharing that kind of service and capability. But oftentimes what happens, it's the nearest facility that's able to really respond rather than one that's at a distance. And if it were not American Canyon providing that, then it would be the county of Napa providing that fire service.
All right, thank you. A great question. Are there other questions from the commission? So I just wanted to go back through because as one of the new commissioners, this is a lot of new information too. So just to go back to understand, so you're saying that that LAFCO approved a sphere of influence amendment for the fire district. The residents of American Canyon did not approve the actual annexation of the property separate
To the city.
to the city, and
Yeah.
the commission also did not approve an annexation of the property to the city.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. So to note that the differences between going into the fire department or going into the city. Yes, same property.
Ooh, buttons. Chair, if I may, it wasn't an annexation. It was a vote for the adjustment of the urban limit line. So I think that's an actually very important consideration here. That what was before the voters in American Canyon was to change the urban limit line that had previously been determined by a prior agreement with the county of Napa that it would not change. That dates back to the Watson Ranch agreement. I think I have that right. Yes. So this was not what was before the voters was not annexation. It was to allow the urban limit line to change so that annexation could happen.
So the denial was on the first step before a preliminary. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because LAFCO controls annexation, but the vote of the people control the urban limit line.
Got it. Thank you for
May-
that clarification.
And one more.
May I add just a point of clarification? Well, great job, Don, with the presentation. I just caught one comment where you had referenced that LAFCO had denied the annexation. So the original proposal to LAFCO from the property owners was it was limited to the spheres of influence of the city of American Canyon and the American Canyon Fire Protection District. So annexation was not being proposed at that time. Just wanted to add that clarification that then LAFCO in June of 2022 denied the sphere amendment involving the city, but approved the sphere amendment to the fire district. And that all occurred before the measure to change the urban limit line was voted on.
Got it. So again, just delving into history a little bit, can you help us understand the commission's reasoning at that point to approve one but deny the other?
Certainly. So the city issue was about land use ability to develop, and the fire district piece of the conversation was really about service efficiencies. And so the fire district had provided LAFCO staff with information showing that the property in question has been in the fire district's service area since at least 1992, and that the American Canyon Fire Protection District was better situated to serve more quickly than the county would be. So that was our thinking. It was all about service efficiencies, and we wanted to protect the property from premature conversion from agricultural use to an urban use. So that was the general thinking, as I recall.
Got it. Thank you. Are there other questions or discussion at this point?
Nope. I'm
Okay. I guess the one observation I would have is that, as a county representative, I'm interested in efficient use of fire services and also maintaining agricultural land where we have it and maintaining the county boundaries where we have it too. So I am hoping that it's actually helpful to have that 2022 decision where there's an approval of the sphere of influence for the fire district, but not for for the city. And so I think if we make a motion or if we take a step today, we're not necessarily changing. We're kind of keeping along that same lines of supporting the fire district, but not making a statement or about another annexation to the city.
That's exactly how staff would see it as well. So well said, Chair Cottrell.
Yeah, speak in your mic. Can't hear you.
The property stays within the county. Yeah, boundaries of the county. It does not go into the city, so, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Leary. Commissioner Painter, and then Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you for the background and the information. And I just want to point out there are a number of circumstances where a fire district or a water district or the sanitation district may have properties inside or outside of city jurisdiction. So this is very specific. I think you explained it very well that we as LAFCO did approve the sphere of influence to sort of set the stage for annexation. You went back and completed what was necessary in terms of the tax sharing agreement, and now what's in front of us is the actual annexation.
Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you. Just what I'll say, just to provide context to my colleagues, one of the very unique things about this parcel, and as it relates to county fire versus the American Canyon Fire Protection District, and I've heard people say, well, this is outside of the city limits, but the fire protection district has nothing to do with the city. They Commissioner Leary and I, having served on that board, it is its own independent jurisdiction, so we have to treat it like it's its own little city. That's number one. Plenty of its jurisdiction actually extends beyond the city limits, and in fact, it is required to have jurisdiction outside of its city limits to avoid legal consolidation with the city. So I think that's something that's important to mention here. What's interesting about this parcel, I'm speaking specifically to my county colleagues, is that this is the only parcel on the south side of Green Island Road that is within the county jurisdiction, and in order to access it, in fact, Napa County Fire would need to pass what is already American Canyon Fire Protection District zone areas to get to it. It is an absolute island in that sense. So I would just provide that as context. It's almost like I laugh about when the school district draws lines and you have to drive past another school to get to your home school. That's exactly what would happen in this scenario if it were to be serviced by the Greenwood station out by the airport. That's all.
Thank you. That's great info. Did you have something else, Commissioner Leary? Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion at this point.
Is there any public comment?
Are we doing public comment? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So sorry. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and open public comment. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you, Barry Christian from American Canyon. Just 2 or 3 questions. I heard the urban limit line referenced as an agreement. And does anybody know if that was a voter-approved agreement or if that was something made with city council in the county?
Correct. The latter.
City council in the county, it was an agreement, it wasn't.
So wait, let's let Barry make his comment and get the questions out, and then we can bring him back and ask staff for input.
Okay, and in the minutes, your last meeting, the property was described as the only use is a commercial vineyard. And I'm not understanding that. I'm familiar with the designation of agricultural watershed or agricultural preserve, and I'm wondering what's the authority for designating it as only a commercial vineyard, and then what is the actual zoning on it? If it's in the county, is it zoned agricultural watershed or some other zoning? Those are my questions.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Barry. Other public comment at this point?
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. My name is David Gilbreth. I'm one of the co-managers of the LLC that owns the property. There is an enormous amount of information before you that you could get. It is impossible to grow agricultural products on the property because of the contamination of salt in the soil. It's irreversible. We have the leading experts that went through that at the hearing about 1.5 years ago. It's never been criticized by any scientist. There are people that say, well, you can anyway. And I think that's an important factor as you deal with this issue and try to understand the past. Dr. Anamosa is the one that did the first analysis. He's retained by many of the vintners. It's all archived. And that has been peer reviewed by Bob Steinhauer, one of the leading people that does this kind of work. And in addition to that, it was reviewed by Hal Huffsmith, who's incredibly knowledgeable about those issues. So the answer, picking up the previous comment, is we believe that scientifically it is impossible to grow agricultural crops there. And the Farm Bureau president, the current president, sat in my dining room about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, this is Peter Nissen, and agreed with Paul Anamosa and his analysis. So we find it a little surprising that the Farm Bureau is so adamant, saying, well, you really can. And I think their position moved from, well, you can't grow grapes because of the soils, and we have no water source, as Bob pointed out, because the water is what contaminated it. So all of that science is there for your review at a time of, if you think it's important for your review of that, we think it's important, and it's an infill piece. The urban limit line got in place through gerrymandering and agreements going back to 2008. It is a remarkable document. This is an agreement between the city council and the county government. And I urge you to take a look at that someday and ask yourself, is there any other place in this county where such an agreement was entered into? And I would hope that you'd be shocked. So we think, candidly, this is an infill piece with the city limit on the eastern side and also on the northern side going up to the airport. So I just wanted you to refresh your memory if you haven't read that material and understand that. But today, the only thing we're requesting is going in, and actually it was a 5-0 vote on the Fire Protection District that filed the application. We didn't, but we believe that we should have that fire protection, and there have been fires in close proximity. So this is a natural evolution, nothing surprising about it, except for some of the documents that predate a time frame with strong disagreements between the county government and the city government. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Gilford.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jeff Belly. I'm the Fire Chief for the American Canyon Fire Protection District. I think this property has, put it lightly, been somewhat controversial in regards when we start talking about urban limit lines, agricultural use for the said property, things like that. I just like to emphasize that if the Commission were to vote in favor of the annexation of this property into the American Canyon Fire Protection District, that would have no bearing on the current or future land uses. Fire Protection District has no land use authority. The property in question would still be within the county, and it would still be the county's purview and decision on future land uses for that said property. This is simply, as Brandon said, just an efficiency of service that the Fire Protection District provides to that said property. And with that, I hope for your consideration for a motion to approve the annexation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's no other public comment. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for, well, first of all, let's see if we can get some of the answers. I think we had heard a question about what the initial agreement looked like. And then there was a question about use as a commercial vineyard and then actual zoning. So
happy to do my best on answering these questions. So that original agreement between the city and the county, that was entered into in 2008. And at the time, the city and the county were coming out of a process in which they were looking at South County area issues and coming up with some solutions to what the county saw as perhaps too much growth in the South County. And so this was an attempt by the county to essentially to rein in South County growth, and the city agreed. And so that is an agreement only between the two agencies. The public was not involved in voting on that. However, the urban limit line for the city of American Canyon is controlled by the voters, and that is something that came up last year? No, that was 2022 as part of the measure that went before City of American Canyon voters to potentially change their urban limit line to include this Green Island Road property. Ultimately, that was voted down, but had it been successful, then that would have resulted in an urban limit line that was inconsistent with the city and the county's agreement on the ultimate boundaries for American Canyon. And so that was a major piece of that process, was looking at whether or not the city and county agreement was binding, but ultimately the voters would have had the final say on the urban limit line piece. Next, Mr. Christian had noted that the LAFCO minutes referred to the only land use being a commercial vineyard, and Mr. Christian was curious about the zoning and general plan designation, if I heard him correctly. And so I confirmed the general plan designation for the property is agriculture, watershed, and open space. And the zoning assignment is agricultural watershed with an airport compatibility overlay. And so the LAFCO report, I don't recall exactly which minutes those would have been, but I assume our intent was to capture what are the actual land uses on the property rather than note the land use potential. But all of this, the general plan designation and the zoning, are included in the staff report for the Green Island Road sphere requests from 2022, and we have maps that show clearly where the various designations are under the county and American Canyon. So that's all in the staff report for June 2022. If Mr. Christian would like, I could send an email with a copy of that report. So I think that covered Mr. Christian's comments. Please contact staff if anything is left unaddressed here and you have additional questions.
Thank you.
Please contact us. You're quite welcome. And then Mr. Gilbreth, I wanted to make a comment that I had a phone call with Mr. Gilbreth last week, and he had let me know that the staff report before the commission refers to an amount of acres of vineyard that have been removed already from the commercial vineyard, and actually that number should be higher. They've already removed, I think it was 98 acres of vineyard to date. And so this is a belated way of making a correction to the record. Should not change anything in terms of the commission's deliberations, but just wanted to correct the record on that, and that another 10 acres of vineyard removal are imminent. I think what else was there? I apologize. I think I forgot one of the questions.
I think you got through everything. I think you provided some information. I think one of Mr. Christian's questions was about the only use being a commercial vineyard, and I think you answered that. So
great.
All right, Commissioner Ramos.
I have a question. Can you explain why the term commercial vineyard is being used as opposed to just a vineyard, and county zoning is agriculture, and that vineyards are not commercial use? So I've noticed that's, I think, been said like 4 or 5 times, and I just want to make sure I understand, because this is county zoning and the county's general plan here. We don't have a commercial vineyard designation in any of our mapping up there.
Great question, Commissioner Ramos. It really comes down to how the application was originally presented to LAFCO for the sphere amendments. Mostly we just ran with the language in the application that referred to the existing use as a commercial vineyard. We don't have any reason beyond just simply that's how it's been commonly referred to. But you're correct to point out the discrepancy here, that word commercial could cause some confusion since it is not something that the county has as a general plan or a zoning designation. So we'll be more mindful in the future using that term.
Yeah, I would just encourage us, because I mean, if the word commercial is getting thrown out there, then we end up in Measure J, Measure P land, and that is not what we are about here at LAFCO. So if maybe what would be just going forward, that we use the zoning allowable uses language that the jurisdiction has over it. Well, in this case, it would always be the county's zoning allowable uses, just to go forward, because that I don't want to send a message that we're approving a commercial use here.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. Staff has noted the comment, and we will certainly use the allowable uses language in the future. This is just something that was not on our radar as a potential issue, but now we understand.
Good point. Thank you. So with that, I'll bring it back to the commission for any further questions, comments. Is there a motion?
I just have one comment, and then I'll be happy to make a motion. I think this is pretty straightforward from previous board action. It was in our sphere. That's when most of the debate happens, and really the annexation is just kind of the next step. And as our executive officer pointed out, the next step usually comes after you have property tax sharing agreements, and that's in place. So I think this is pretty standard. I think all the big heavy debates probably already occurred, and now that there's property tax sharing agreement, I'm ready to make a motion that we approve the Green Island Road number 3 annexation to the American Canyon Fire District.
Second.
Protection District.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thanks for the discussion. I think that's helpful to kind of build some context while we're deliberating. So that brings us to item 6B, proposed Trower Avenue number 6 annexation to the Napa Sanitation District and associated CEQA findings.
All right, thank you. And I think the best way for me to reference and kind of focus in on this property, this tends to be sort of our standard applications to the sanitary district. And if we look at this particular map, which is in your staff report and it shows the various parcels, that's your first map on page 2. And you can see that area, there are actually 3 large parcels together there that you would note. What is before you, 4 parcels actually, and what is before you today are 2 of those 4 parcels. And you will note when you look at that map that those parcels are pretty much surrounded by typical single-family dwelling lots. So it is within the city of Napa, and the zoning and general plan in that area designates this as single-family infill with a designation of a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. So what's before you today is the 2 parcels located at 2427 and 2433 Trower Avenue. Those constitute a little bit over 1 acre. The property owner has submitted an application to annex to the sanitary district. There are currently 3 single-family residences on those 2 parcels, and the property owner has plans to go through the city process and add one additional single-family residence on the property. You will note from the factors that were included with the report, you will note that this is not a high fire area, and also it is relatively flat. And it does have 100% consent of the property owners. So it tends to be sort of a very standard kind of annexation that we get. When you look again at that map that I showed you to the right-hand side of 2427 is a parcel that was approved, I think, last year for annexation to the sanitary district. The advantage, of course, with this is the more homes that are removed from septic systems, that it really is an advantageous situation for the health and safety of the residents. With regard to the other members of the sanitary district, this is actually a benefit to them as well, because then you have more ratepayers to share the cost of the different rates. So from that standpoint, it does make sense. Now, with this, the annexation, we're showing this exempt from CEQA because it is consistent with the zoning and the requirements of the city. And also, we're using the exemption that it's going to extend a sewer line less than 1 mile because there is a lateral already in Trower Avenue. The property owners will be paying for that improvement. It will not be the city paying for the improvement of those laterals extended. So that's the extent of this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners who have questions for staff? Commissioner Painter? No question.
No questions, just a comment if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Thank you, Dawn. And just by way of comment, you explained it just perfectly well. And there are a number of these little pockets of properties that are not within the sanitation district boundaries. These properties are within the boundaries of the city of Napa. So it's, in some respects, it's kind of a cleanup item, and it makes sense. We're looking to try to build housing, so the efficient use of the sanitation district to allow for an additional house incrementally moves everything forward. So by way of context, it's probably not the last one you'll see in terms of these little properties annexing to the sanitation district. And I want to express my support for the project, but if there are other questions, I'll defer to other commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Ramos.
I will just echo Commissioner Painter's comments. I received a Napa constituent email last week about this exact type of situation and pointing them in the right direction to move. And I agree, in order for us to be able to meet our greater regional housing goals, we're going to have to be very efficient about our infrastructure use. And so I think it would be really great knowing that that's on the horizon. If staff could actually kind of figure out a more of like a template, streamlined way of how these come before us, so that we can maybe just have a quick check sheet that says like, this helps with the efficiency, this is, there are additional uses, but so that we can really kind of track this is that real impactful work that LAFCO can do for that greater regional discussion. And it seems like such a small little move, but it really is a big deal, and we are going to have more of them on the horizon. So I would just suggest we look at how we can package this and really track what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that we've been, I guess, the last 8 years or so talking about islands, and we as a commission have been working diligently to eliminate the islands. And whereas it may look simple and easy from our standpoint, but there are some people who just don't want to change. And so I think we are well aware of those things, and it can be just a matter of checking the boxes and such. So I'm in agreement. And if there's no further discussion, I'd like to make the motion.
Thank
Unless,
you, Vice Chair Leary.
Yeah, unless.
I'll do the second.
Okay, all right.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Leary, a second by Commissioner Painter.
To approve the Tower Avenue number 6 annexation to the Napa Sanitation District.
Thank you. All those in favor?
If I may,
Aye.
Chair, I know that we only have one member of the public, but if
Thank you
there's-
for
Oh,
reminding me. Let me
yes,
make sure
yeah.
there's any, if there any public comment on this item. We're getting the handshake. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Close public comment, bring it back. We have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Don. All right, that brings us to item 7, Executive Officer Report. Mr. Freeman.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an item that many of you have not seen before, but some of you who have been around a while remember the old days of having an executive officer's report on every agenda. For quite a while, it was a written information-only report that would show up under the consent calendar. It was then dropped a couple of years ago, but now is returning as verbal-only reports for the most part, unless there's a reason to present something in writing. And so this will just be an update on all sorts of activities you otherwise wouldn't even be aware that LAFCO staff is working on. So this one's actually fairly substantial, it turns out. One item, actually, before I get to the specifics there, quick note that the commission may not enter into deliberations as part of this item. There's no action affixed to this report, but I am interested in your feedback if you have any suggestions about the format or the content moving forward. So I'll get into the details here. Our next commission meeting is scheduled for April 1st. However, staff discovered just this morning that is actually a county holiday. We will be observing Cesar Chavez's birthday that day, and that is because Cesar Chavez's birthday is on March 31st, which is a Sunday this year, and under the county's schedule, we observe Sunday holidays on the following Monday, and so that falls on April 1st. Staff just didn't catch this. We watched the county holiday schedule and we saw March 31st. Didn't occur to us that it would be observed on April 1st, but in the future, we'll be much better and more diligent about checking for those types of unique issues. And so staff will follow up with the commission. We're going to need to essentially reschedule the meeting. It will most likely take the form of canceling the regular meeting scheduled for April 1st and then scheduling a special meeting for whatever date we can get on the calendar. But we'll treat the meeting as we would any regular meeting otherwise. Next item is a quick update on our work program, which you do not have a copy of our work program in today's packet. There were some updates presented at the last meeting in December, just making some changes here and there to certain activities. I just want to give a quick update that a couple of the studies, notably the Napa Sanitation District Sphere update and the County Service Area number 4 Municipal Service Review and Sphere Review, will be delayed just a few months while we wait for some key information from the affected agencies and some of the landowners. In the case of Napa Sanitation District, I'm working closely with a group of landowners interested in a pretty significant project that may involve amending the district's sphere. So stay tuned for that. Also, item 5E on today's agenda relates to the work program, and that is a brief update on the scheduled municipal service review for fire and emergency medical services. So have a look at item 5E for a status update of where we're at there. Next item, I had recently attended the Napa County League of Governments meeting on January 11th, otherwise known as NICLOG, and the special presentation for that meeting was about municipal water systems, and it highlighted all of the great shared service arrangements we already have and also new shared services and resources that are in the works. And all of this is perfectly aligned with LAFCO's recent countywide water and wastewater municipal service review. So we're happy to see this happening, and great to see this presented in front of a room full of elected officials and senior level staff. So I think whether or not LAFCO prompted these agencies to have these discussions, or if they were happening already, hard to say, but I do believe we had a role in forcing the hand of some agencies that maybe need a little bit of help. And also related to NICLOG is that they need a topic for their next meeting in May. And so perhaps if we're far along enough with our fire and emergency medical services study, maybe an opportunity for me to present some information on that at that meeting, or perhaps a following meeting. Just throwing it out there. Next up, so in the past, the executive officer's performance evaluation would occur in roughly the middle of the calendar year, sometime in June or August, sometimes would slip to October. We had agreed at one of the last meetings that we will change the timing to have this occur in February each year, which would allow us to discuss issues such as my salary and whether or not budget changes might be appropriate. So if we wrap up my annual evaluation in February, then the budget committee can take that information and prepare a draft budget, and then we don't have to come back and change it later. And so the next one will actually be February of next year, since this year we're already in February, and we can't do anything with my salary anyway, which is another topic, but we'll get there in closed session today, perhaps. Another item of note is that we have our ongoing search for an alternate public member, or we may reappoint the incumbent. So alternate Commissioner Khan is not present today, but she has put in an application, and there's been one other individual who has applied so far, and the application period ends on March 8th. The actual appointment or reappointment will occur at the April meeting, whatever date that is, and that'll be part of a noticed public hearing. So staff will actually publish a notice in the newspaper alerting the public to the appointment or reappointment. Another key item that's been discussed is whether or not LAFCO can incorporate a hybrid meeting option into our meeting formats. And the conclusion for the last year or so has been that we don't have the resources at the staff level to handle all of that, but we are working closely with county staff, and apparently there are some key updates occurring with the AV system, and in fact our clerk/junior analyst Stephanie Pratt knows a lot more of the fine details than I do. She's working closely with county staff, and hopefully we'll have hybrid meeting opportunities as early as the April meeting. So keep an eye out for that. A couple more items. One is I had recently sent out a notice to the commission that there is an annual water education for Latino leaders annual conference in San Jose. The dates are March 15th and 16th. I believe the 15th is a Friday, and it's more social and networking. And then the 16th is a Saturday. That's the actual meat of the conference. And speaking of alternate Commissioner Khan, she has already registered for this, and the rest of the commission is invited and encouraged to register as well if interested and available. Please let staff know if you did not get that invite, or if you need us to send it again. We would be happy to. And this would be covered by LAFCO's budget as an activity related to LAFCO business. Now, finally, a couple notes about CalLAFCO. So CalLAFCO is doing a great deal of consequential work right now, which will impact all 58 counties in California. And you may want to refer to item 5F on today's agenda. It's the CalLAFCO newsletter, which highlights some of the current events happening. And you'll see a wonderful message from the CalLAFCO chair, Margie Moeller. In addition to Commissioner and Chair Moeller, we have Commissioner Leary also serving on CalLAFCO. It's a 16-member board, and Napa has 2 of those 16 members, so let's make it count. And I'll be looking to Commissioners Moeller and Leary to provide additional pertinent updates if you have any as part of item 8 on today's agenda, Commissioner comments and requests for future agenda items. And last but not least, Assistant Executive Officer Longoria serves as the Coastal Region Deputy Executive Officer and has been working on some really tremendous and exciting LAFCO University courses. The next one is titled Navigating the Role of Executive Officer and is scheduled for Tuesday, March 5th in the afternoon. It's open to commissioners and staff, and it's free to all of us since we are paying members of LAFCO. Commissioners are encouraged to attend this as well. It could give you some great ideas how to leverage your role and get the most out of your executive officer. So please get in touch with staff once the information is out there. Well, we'll follow up because we haven't sent that information out yet. So you'll see a notice about that soon. And so, that concludes my report, and happy to receive feedback if appropriate, or we can chat offline.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I just had one about the hybrid meeting. So I thought that we were still waiting for updates from the state legislature about that, but it's your understanding that we can run a hybrid meeting? Does that mean that a commissioner could be remote but would need to be at a publicly accessible location? I'm looking at Mr. Bell, maybe.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a little more detail on that. So there are at least 3 different ways to participate remotely under the Brown Act. You have the traditional teleconferencing that occurs, and that's, I think, what you're referring to, where the teleconference location is on the agenda, an agenda is posted at the remote location, and those procedures are followed. There's also AB 2449, which amended Government Code 54953 in the Brown Act to allow this for a just cause or an emergency circumstance. That's somewhat limited, and no more than 20% of meetings can be, a commissioner can only participate that way, and up to 20% of the meetings every year. So it is possible. There are different rules. Those are a departure from the pandemic era emergency rules. If this technology becomes available, we're prepared to advise on those options if the commission wants to use them.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you for the report. Moving on to agenda item number 8. Do any commissioners have comments or requests for future agenda items?
I don't have a future agenda item. I just wanted to, I saw a staff report or an email kind of go out from our LAFCO executive officer, I think, or maybe Stephanie, I can't remember who it was. So this year's LAFCO conference, we just found out that Cal Cities scheduled their meeting at the same time that we already have ours in Yosemite. So we're really, if you haven't replied back to Stephanie, I think who sent it out, if you could do so, if you possibly know what your calendar is going to look like in October. We're really trying to get a head count, and it's really hard to move a meeting for us at this point. I mean, we negotiate this, 4 years ago or more, and then there was a pandemic and renegotiated it and all that other stuff. So we've had it scheduled for a while. So it's October 16th through the 18th in Yosemite, and Cal Cities is in Long Beach. So it's really hard to split the difference on that one. So if you kind of know which one you're going to, and I can get some information back to Cal LAFCO so we can pull out all this kind of stuff together. And if everyone's going to go, we don't have a problem. If nobody's going to go, we have a problem. So anything in between, we'll probably have to talk about it. So anything you can do there, we greatly appreciate it.
Got it. Thank you. Other items, comments? All right. So at this point, we'll roll to agenda item number 9, which is a closed session. Mr. Bell?
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. There's one closed session agenda item on your agenda this afternoon. It's a conference with legal counsel based on anticipated litigation. It's one potential case that's based on facts that the Commission believes are not yet known to potential plaintiffs.
Great. So we'll adjourn to that item.
And can we ask staff to join us?
Yeah, that is up to the Commission. So staff can be there, the commission would like, as to the other staff.
I would find it very useful if staff was there.
Being the subcommittee, Commissioner Leary and myself had discussed before, there were some items we wanted to discuss with the commission first, and then we could then bring staff in, but we wanted to discuss some items with the commission first.
All right, so we could do something where we ask staff to be on standby, maybe check in 10 minutes. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
First call when I get to my car, it's Vice Mayor.
All right, we are back after closed session. Mr. Bell, could you offer a report?
Yes, there is no reportable action from closed session.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 10, adjournment to our next scheduled meeting. I believe we actually don't have a scheduled date at this point, so we'll adjourn to our next meeting, date uncertain.
Yeah, that will work. So I believe staff will be posting an additional notice on the website when that meeting is called, and that it will also be called as a special meeting.
Okay.
That will not be an issue in terms of, there's nothing that requires a regular meeting, is my understanding from speaking with staff. So that'll be on the commission's website, and then of course the agenda will be published following your normal procedures.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.